Well, thank you, everybody. It's 1:02 officially. We're going to get this webinar started. Thank you so much for your time today. Today, we really wanted to hit on a kind of an important topic here. We've been getting around to a lot of different facilities in the United States, and we've noticed that there's more and more emphasis on safety. What are some critical points that companies can focus on to help alleviate some of the safety issues out there at the loading dock and in facilities today? So I'm really excited to be on this call with you guys. We have two other people that'll be supporting this call. First of all, my name is Dennis Sanacor. I'm the Vice President of Strategic Accounts and National Service Programs for the Miner Corporation. I started my career 26 years ago and been doing this a long time. I've seen a lot of different kinds of facilities, manufacturing plants and such, and we really wanted to take the time and put something together based off of some of our findings we've had at some of the locations we've been working in. So that's who I am. I have two other people here, Johnny Allen and James Palmerini. So Johnny, can you please tell me a little bit about yourself, and thanks again for contributing today.
Yeah, no, glad to be here. As Dennis mentioned, my name is Johnny Allen, and I'm our Vice President for Construction Services here at Miner. I oversee the sales and execution for construction projects for Miners, 40 plus locations nationally. JP, if you'll introduce yourself.
Yes, sir. Thanks. Appreciate being here. My name is James Palmerini. Everybody knows me as JP. I've been in the loading dock and commercial door business for 23 years. I've been with Miner for 11 years, and I've held just about every position in an organization of this nature that you can. My current role is Regional Vice President of End User Sales. I cover Florida, and look forward to going over some safety stuff with you guys today. Dennis?
Yeah, thanks, JP. And really the reasoning is, JP has been really focused on the operational and sales side of the business with service and end user business, and Johnny has been paramount for the construction development and really sees the construction side of it that way. And then I see national accounts and operations and service and other things too. So we thought we would bring us all together and kind of start figuring out and talking about safety. And I think there's some big companies out there currently that are really focusing in on this. And it's one of the things that companies have come to us and said, hey, what can you guys kind of support us in from the safety initiatives around what you do and then the specific products. So the one thing we need to really take honing in on is safety, right? It doesn't matter how big or small a facility is, it's equally as important. And one of the things I wrote down today is, the workforce, right? How hard it is to find good employees. Well, good employees are going to go to companies that have good safe records, good safety practices that believe in their people and want their people to come home safe. And if it's ignored, likelihood is a lot of the good talent that's out there looking to come on to different companies, they're not going to want to be working for unsafe businesses, and that's small or large businesses, right? OSHA compliance is another one. The fines have gone up a lot, and Johnny's going to talk about that a little bit, but really that's just one element of it. Really being compliant is one thing, but really being aware is a whole nother thing too. So really figuring out how to become more aware with the OSHA rules and regulations out there, and again, to help keep facilities safe, keeping productivity alive, and making sure that your employees are feeling safe in their workforce. And then really, when is the perfect time to do a safety check or just a checkup on your overall facility and why, right? So I think what we got to figure out as business owners and operations managers and safety managers and all this stuff is, when's a good time to kind of get a safety checkup, and why would we do one, right? So there's a lot of reasons on why to do it, but that's coming here with Johnny next. Johnny, can you take this slide for us?
Yeah, so this portion of the conversation here is primarily wrapped around the value of loading dock safety. And for me and my team, we spend a lot of time assisting architects, engineers, plant owners, developers on how to design a loading dock or a warehouse facility in the way that it's going to provide a safe environment for its employees. And the loading dock is a major area and one of the primary areas inside of a facility where a lot of injuries occur. You know, a $5,000 investment in the safety equipment can prevent, you know, an insurance settlement, a lawsuit, a hazard, you know, someone falling out of the dock. So, you know, a big portion for what my team does on the front end is to advise developers, end users on the best way to create a safe loading dock early on in the process, where it's much cheaper than it would be to try to do it retroactively after an event has occurred. So while it's an investment on the front end, it should also be looked at from a savings perspective as well, because you're going to prevent a lot of safety issues from occurring if the proper equipment is included in the facility on the front end. And we'll get into a lot of what those types of equipment and best practices are here today.
So really, what is OSHA looking for in loading dock safety? And we just highlighted some things here that we thought were relevant. There's a lot of incidences like Johnny was mentioning, like 1 in 4 accidents happen at the loading dock. That's a statistic that's out there from OSHA that's been out there. It's probably getting a little bit worse, but it's around that metric. And then really, they're looking for, you know, clear paths and visual warnings. So really, you know, making sure the warehouses are lit and bright, and there's actual guides and railings and walkways and all that kind of stuff. Making sure that forklifts are used effectively, especially around the edge of dock where there's a 4-foot drop off, which we'll talk about that and what that OSHA standard means. Just making sure the dock plate integrity is good. So there's a lot of cases where welds are cracked, concrete broken behind the rear hinges. There's also bumper damage in some of those where the bumpers have come off, and then what happens is trucks hit the wall, break the equipment, and then you have you know, dock plate issues that can cause safety issues where people are pulling lips of dock levels out with their fingers and forklifts driving them down. So I think there's some of that for sure. Ladders, you know, making sure people aren't jumping off the dock. It's 4 feet from the pit floor, or from the floor to the ground. So that's a 4-foot drop, and you know how it is. We're not as young as we used to be, some of us, and you can't just jump 4 feet and not expect to get hurt. Lockout, tagout is really big. Edge guards, you know, Johnny's going to talk a little bit about that, more of the visual warnings around edges, and then ventilation, like making sure there's fans and breeze and air in some of these facilities. And one of the things that I wrote down is, you know, over time, new priorities take on extra importance. So these lockout, tagout procedures, once it becomes a norming, like the nomenclature of your mindset in the teams, it really becomes part of your business day in and day out, and it just becomes standard. So you enhance your safety practices. JP, can you handle the safety part on doors for us?
Absolutely. It's funny that you mentioned the 4-foot drop off. I actually worked for a company where I saw an employee jump off the dock, and he blew out his knee and was out quite a bit of time. So silly little things like that can lead to some major lost time for companies. I'm going to talk about the doors. You know, you have your loading dock doors, and there's 3 specific types that we typically see in a warehouse application. You have a sectional door, you have a rolling steel door, or a rolling sheet door. Kind of the 3 standards. You also have security doors and man doors. Then you have the dock seals that go on the outside of the building to, you know, create a good seal for the truck as it backs up. One common thing that we see in doors is they have springs, and the springs relax over time. What that does is it allows the door to start creeping back down. You got to have maintenance on your springs, constantly tensioning them, lubing them. Rollers get hung up. There's just a litany of things that can go wrong with the door, and you know, that's when injuries happen, and that's when damage happens. You know, if you can imagine a door floating back down an opening, and you got a forklift running through the opening to go unload a truck, and the door clips the top of the forklift, and boom, now you got a down door. You know, downtime is another thing to consider when keeping maintenance on your doors pretty regular. You know, if one door goes down, that's a truck that can't load or unload, depending on how many positions are in the facility. I mean, it could have a major impact to their ability to produce revenue. We had one customer that if a door went down and it was down for a day, it would cost them 50 to 60 grand. So multiply that by however many doors you got, or if you only got one, God forbid, and it's down, then you're shut down. Within the facility, you'll find like high-speed doors, cold storage doors. You're going to have fire doors, and those all need to be maintained. Fire doors is life safety. We need to be in there drop testing these doors once a year, and that's per code. And that's something that you definitely, if you have a fire door, you need to make sure it's properly drop tested once a year. On the high-speed doors, this is more for cold storage facilities. We see those a lot, and they serve a lot of purposes. Honestly, they go up and down at a high rate of speed because we don't want the cool air to creep out. You're typically going from a cooler or freezer to ambient, or a freezer to cooler. And what happens is with the energy, you're going to lose, the cooling power. And then you're also going to develop water or condensation because of the change in temperature, which then creates a slip hazard. Some of the things we adjust on the high-speed doors are the sensors. That's, catching traffic coming in and out. And these high-speed doors, they go up really, really fast, and they come down at a good rate of speed. And you want to make sure your sensors are adjusted so it doesn't clip somebody on the way down. It can happen.
So JP, what devices help with safety? Are you saying like the proper activation and potentially motors on on regular doors and stuff like that?
Yeah, for sure. The more we can automate the doors so they're not manual, the better. It's not always going to be possible, but you could have a door that has a chain hoist on it rather than pushing it up and pulling it down by hand. Part of the problem with the mechanical application of the springs on the doors is when they relax, the doors are going to be heavy. So if you got, a worker in your warehouse that's undersized, they could possibly hurt their back lifting the door because the tension is started to lose over time. So automating it is definitely something that would make it safer and easier to use over the long run. Motor operators are good. Typically we have motion sensors that'll do the high-speed doors. There's a lot of new cool applications out that, heck, they got wave functions where you wave your hand in front of a door and it'll open instead of having to touch a button. So there's a lot of options there.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff could be retrofitted as well, which is good. Talk a little bit about vehicle restraints and really maybe what is it and what are the benefits of them, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So vehicle restraint it's a device that holds the truck to the building. Right now, it used to be in the industry that, truck drivers back up and they got to chalk their wheels, and that keeps the truck close to the building. There's a lot of risk factors with semi trucks backing up to your building and the unload process with your people in your facility on your forklifts or your pallet jacks. Ultimately, these things are designed to keep the truck engaged to the opening until the load or unload is complete. There's a lot of trailer creep. Sometimes, a trailer could start moving away if it's not restrained to the building. And as you're going in and out at high rate of speed with your forklift, all of a sudden the leveler could disengage from the semi truck and the forklift could hit the ground. I've seen truck drivers drive away during the unloading process with a forklift in the back of the truck, and driver had no idea the guy was still there. He thought he was done, and you got an employee backing up, and it could possibly fall at the ground. And forklifts are heavy, and this is a very scary accident within a facility, and I've seen a couple. And usually it takes a big disaster for a company to go, we're going to do this, at every single one of our facilities. And we just hope that we can avoid these disasters and make sure everybody gets home safe. Another key thing for me that I like about their truck restraint, being restrained to the building, is it's got a red-green light system. And, that system is great because it not only alerts the driver, he'll see, just like a traffic light, you got red and green. Red means, that, hey, you're not able to pull away because they're still unloading the truck. So it's a simple look back. Hey, they're still unloading my truck, or they're loading my truck. I got a red light. I can't move. Then on the inside of the door, it's the same for the employees in the warehouse. They'll have a green light, that says, hey, I'm good to proceed. I can run in here, unload this truck, and do my job without having to worry about the truck driver driving away. And if it's a red light, he knows that the inside guy knows that he can't go on the truck. He got a red light, stop. So those are a few of the important components and factors in truck restraints and why they're so valuable.
Yeah, no, that's good stuff. And I think, two points on the previous one about the doors. We did a case study with a large e-commerce group, and they basically said it costs them $10,000 an hour to have a door not operating from a productivity standpoint. And then obviously vehicle restraints. We've seen more and more of these being put on the facilities now to prevent theft. And that's a pretty interesting way to look at it. It was always safety, 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 but also, theft is a big reason on why people are utilizing vehicle restraints these days. So thanks, JP, for that insight. It was really good. Johnny, can you help us understand the edge guarding and what this means today and what OSHA is doing with that?
Yeah, so I mean, the two primary purposes for the edge guarding is, one, to prevent personnel from falling off of a 48-inch dock high facility, or also driving a forklift off of the facility. And there's several different ways that you can defend against that. If you have powered equipment, specifically hydraulic units, there's an option on those levelers to bring in what is called a safety barrier lip. That is a function of the lip that actually extends, above the dock height at the edge. So it would prevent a forklift from driving off the edge if it's in the stored position. There's also other things such as, guardrails, mesh barriers, chains that would extend across the door or the dock opening in the event that the door was opening to provide some form of barrier. In addition to preventing things from leaving the facility, such as forklifts and people, these types of things also defend against unwanted guests coming into the facility as well. So while it's a safety issue on one hand, it's also a security to the employees that are working inside of the facility in a lot of occasions as well. OSHA 1910 has, and we can certainly get this out to the group here, but OSHA 1910 explains some of the requirements around providing a guarded barrier in the event that they're working in or around an area that has 4 foot or more of a drop off. So it's very important to maintain a condition at the loading dock that allows people to work nearby the dock without the risk of falling out of the opening. And that plays right into the next slide as well. We're going to talk about ventilation. A lot of facilities leave the door open for air quality improvement, and certainly those are important to maintain, worker focus inside of the facility. But it also presents a lot of risk with humidity coming into the facility, and also personnel coming into the facility that shouldn't be entering through the back. They should be coming through your normal security process in the front of your facility. So, with the ventilation at the loading dock, air quality improvement is a big thing, temperature control, and then obviously humidity mitigation, as you can see here. And the way to defend against that is HVLS fans. Just the breeze alone from an HVLS fan is something that's more meaningful to employees. And this is through a survey that we've performed. The constant breeze of feeling a fan blowing on them was actually much more beneficial and provided a better work experience than just working in a cool air condition, such as air-conditioned facility. So the HVLS fans provide that. They also provide a way to mitigate floor moisture that could, ultimately result in forklifts, losing control inside of the facility, slips, trips, and falls inside of the facility with employees working. And it just creates a much more better work environment for the employees as well. Dennis, if you can keep going to, so the clear paths and racks, everyone's been to Home Depot and they see, when a forklift is in an aisle, in most occasions, they're blocking off the 2 aisles adjacent to that particular facility, to that aisle. so that if anything were to get knocked off of any of the adjacent aisles, it wouldn't hurt employees that are working on aisles where there's someone not actively trying to unload things off of a rack. So clearly delineated paths for vehicle traffic and foot traffic is a huge must. We've seen it quite a bit of times across the country where facilities are designed without the pedestrian in mind. Facilities in large in part are designed with making sure that forklifts have a clear line of sight and travel path, but nothing really delineates where pedestrians are supposed to navigate throughout the facility. So providing guardrail and clear floor markings on where these employees are to navigate inside of the facility where you have forklifts working is a big thing. Also rack protection. There are a lot of really cool videos out there of forklifts running into pallet racking inside of warehouses and the domino effect occurring when they damage one of the legs on that racking. And one option there is to provide floor protection around a lot of the racking, just so that if a forklift were to get near the racking, it would prevent it from actually engaging with the rack, and also preventing the domino effect of collapsing rack inside of your facility. The next topic is primarily wrapped around the dock levelers itself, and I mentioned a minute ago safety barrier lips that are an option on hydraulic equipment, and this is a really important component to safety because it prevents forklifts from being able to drive off of the dock in the event that you're using the dock door as a means of ventilation inside your warehouse today. Since vehicles and people travel over the equipment, it's very important that the application be correct. In a lot of cases, there are what is referred to as a contractor grade dock leveler that gets installed inside of a facility just as a means of providing some form of transportation or bridge in between the warehouse floor and the truck. However, if they're misapplied and undersized, you could get a significant amount of cracking along the structural welds, not only visible at the top of the dock, but most importantly, you can start to get a lot of structural cracks underneath the dock leveler. And this sort of plays back into some of the proactive maintenance conversation that we've talked about today. We've got to get to a place in the industry where we're not only visually inspecting things from the surface of the floor, but also bringing in technical people that are skilled and trained at being able to evaluate the condition of a dock leveler, and also taking it back a step, ensuring that on the front end, when we're designing facilities, that we're taking into consideration the gross vehicle weight of your forklifts, the size of load that you're carrying, and ensuring that the dock equipment that's going into your facility will accommodate those weights. In most occasions, dock levelers are intended to be used essentially 8 times per day, regardless of the manufacturer that you want to that you're preferable with. Most of them are going to tell you that this dock is intended to be used 8 times per day, and so it's very limiting from a capacity standpoint if you're going to be utilizing dock levelers over and above their design intent. So like I mentioned earlier, it's very important that on the front end that you take into consideration gross vehicle weight, the types of loads that you're going to have coming on and off of your trucks, because a misapplied dock leveler could create significant structural challenges and compromise the dock leveler while it's being used. Dennis, anything else on dock levelers?
The only thing I would add is it's not necessarily just the leveler, right? Because, and to your point, I remember a case where somebody put in brand new dock levelers, 30,000 pound capacity boards, and they ended up going to 3-wheel forklifts, which caused in 6 months destruction of the top of the boards, created this dishing effect that went kind of like a hole in the dock leveler. So it's not just the levelers, it's everything around the warehouse, to Johnny's point, you know. So that's really good insight, Johnny. I appreciate that.
Yeah, let me just add to that real quick on the three-wheel forklift. So on a three-wheel forklift, a lot of the weight gets distributed to the center back wheel. And, you know, forklifts are one size, and they typically drive over the same area of the dock leveler when they're driving into the facility. So over time, when Dennis mentioned the dishing effect, if it's undersized and it's not designed to accommodate that third wheel, you have a large point load on the back of your forklift, and so it's going to create a dish in the dock leveler where it drives over it consistently and ultimately compromising some of the structural integrity there on the bottom of the leveler that you can't see from the top looking down, right? It's going to be required, it's going to be noticed through a proactive maintenance program or something along the lines of performing, you know, visual inspections underneath the leveler.
Good point.
You know, the next point here with the cleanliness and organization of loading docks, you know, keeping spaces clean. Some of the best practices that we've seen through a lot of our customers across the country have been, you know, trash bins at every dock position or every other dock position, just to create some awareness around, if you see cardboard on the floor, ensuring that it gets picked up and puts in a trash disposal and not on the floor to where someone could slip. You know, ensuring that not only, you know, the warehouse floor is kept clean, but also the pits where your dock levelers are stored. A lot of times those are a trash bin in itself, and over time, if trash piles up in there, it could compromise the functionality of the dock leveler and ultimately creating an environment to where it's not able to function as it's intended. In addition to cleanliness and organization, that also ties back to what we discussed earlier regarding the humidity and floor sweat, ensuring that there's no moisture on the floor. You know, having someone that's, you know, consistently monitoring that through floor sweepers that are constantly running inside of your facility, but also, you know, ensuring that, you know, employees have a place to go put trash in the event that they do see it on the floor. So there's a lot of good practices out there in terms of being able to keep a facility clean, but this is an area that often gets overlooked just because there's so much traffic and activity at the loading dock that, you know, rarely, you know, do people take the time to make sure that it's clean. So, you know, another best practice is having a stand down every, you know, several hours to ensure that the floors are kept clean where forklifts are loading and unloading vehicles, just so that there's no issue there either. So that's a really big part of, you know, keeping warehouses clean and organized. And, you know, the other thing is everybody works better when they're working in a clean environment and an organized environment. It increases productivity, eliminates the risk of safety hazards, and just overall creates a better environment for working.
Yeah, good housekeeping is good safety. Has always been my mindset there. You know, we talked a little bit about this, won't spend too much time, but, you know, whether large or small, you know, safety needs to be a priority. And really ask yourself this question: can you afford a lawsuit from somebody breaking an arm or getting severely hurt? Can you afford the insurance premiums? Word of mouth gets out. Can you afford people leaving the, you know, the opportunity of the place they work, right? It's really difficult to replace people, to train people. And so making sure safety is a priority, regardless of the size of your organization, is absolutely paramount in today's day and age. And then why we use advanced data-driven safety checks, right? Because there's plenty of regulations right now, like whether it's OSHA, American Institute of Baking, Food Safety, all of these opportunities out there. There's people to come in and kind of making sure that things are sanitary, making sure things are safe. Those things are super important today. And really, you know, just the issues that interfere with safety and compliance are so many, right? So that it's like the high speed pace of an operation, pallets per hour into a truck, lack of communications, no lights, no mirrors, no activation signals. And when you get into some of these larger facilities, you're starting to see more of these kind of communication signals and all these different opportunities on trying to enhance communications to alleviate safety, right? So making sure those motion sensors are set to pick up the right mass so the door opens and it doesn't close on somebody walking through it when they shouldn't be walking through it. Just the misuse and abuse of assets happens every day. And to making sure that you have that data-driven safety check where someone's coming in and double checking the condition of your facilities is super important today. And I think the best way to do it is through safe checks, which is the new way to do dock surveys. And these are assets that are captured in an app that is basically utilizing electronic evidence and data and the DNA properties of your facility so that you can get a real-time completion of what this looks like. And it just gives you your own customized website with a condition per asset, per spend, per repair needed, all of that stuff. And if you don't know what you have, this is another way to kind of get, like I said earlier, the DNA of a 6x8 leveler, a 9x10 door, a 12x12 high-speed door. One of the things that is pulled from these surveys as well as fans. We had an incident where nobody did any maintenance on their high-speed fans and a blade flew off. Didn't hit anybody, thank goodness. But again, those are the things, making sure those bolts are locked down. How often do your maintenance teams get up on a scissor lift 30 feet in the air and check the bolts on fans? So these are the kind of things that are out there. You just got to make sure you ask for it, and people will come out and effectively give you a current condition on your facilities. You know, there's different ways to do it too. There's a standard dock survey where people will come out, they'll write it down on a piece of paper and they'll say this, this, and this. It takes a long time. It's not streamlined, but it really gives you, it could give you an idea, right? But there's also the safe check, which is a really unique one in its class. There's nothing else like it out there that kind of generates the data, and then you can make decisions on data. And the other cool part about it is it could be barcoded and it could be asset tagged. So then you ever want to scan that barcode, you could say this door has been maintained. This door we've spent $10,000 on this door. Maybe it's time just to budget for a new one. Or, hey, listen, this is a direct run from one side of the facility to right into the dock, into the door. And maybe there's some sort of parameters of safety that we can build in to kind of alleviate some of this on this one or two positions that are having the most issues. So it helps with the data, it helps with root cause analysis, it just helps with decisions, and it's customizable so that you can have your own personalized website.
Hey, Dennis, one point on that I just want to add.
Yeah.
You know, and this applies not only to existing facilities that are currently in place, but also, you know, it should be something that if you're designing a new facility or looking at acquiring a new facility, building a new facility, these are things that you can do on the front end, you know, depending on the type of dock equipment or, you know, that you're wanting. It's a best practice to try to get this stuff built in on the front end so that you understand the condition of your equipment when you get there. And if you're in a lease environment, right, you know you have documented electronic evidence on the front end, the condition of your equipment, so that if you do have to move out of that facility in the future, then you have electronic evidence and well-documented proactive maintenance plan that could prevent you from paying some unwanted costs as you move out of that space in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the other thing, Johnny, is like, you know, once a year to make sure you got this in place. Like even if you put a new unit in, you'll have the data up front, you know what it is, but then you can have that tracking year over year to make sure you're getting that 10, 15 years life cycle of the equipment that you're supposed to. JP, you want to jump on this one?
Yeah, I sure do. So you guys just spent more time on the safe check piece. I'm going to start out on the standard dock survey. You know, why I think this is beneficial to a lot of our facilities owners and maintenance people is, you know, it's a free site survey that Miner will come out and do for you. And what it consists of is one of our sales reps coming out to do a walkthrough. They're going to do a visual inspection of all your equipment, whether it be docks, doors, fans, and just kind of get an idea of what exactly you have in your facility, what size doors, what capacity levelers. And it gives us the opportunity to walk through and kind of look for any safety issues that we see that may arise. Also, you know, if you're a facility manager and you just moved into a facility, you might not have the right dock equipment and you're not the dock expert. And that's why, you know, you need somebody like us to come out there and advise you. Maybe you've got edge of docks and you really need a dock leveler. So these are things that during our survey will come out. We'll take a survey. We'll give you a list of all the assets that you do have in place, and then we'll give you a rating and look for anything visually that we can see right away that says, hey, like, we need to get this fixed. It's a safety issue. There's a lot we can catch just as salespeople as we're walking a facility. Another one is like the weather seals for a food facility. If you got light coming in and weather seals hanging off, that's an entry point for rodents, and it's also a compliance issue. So, that is something that Miner offers as a standard free dock survey. Come out, let us do the survey, and we'll get you a quote if there's anything that we see needs fixing. Now on the Safe Check, that's definitely a lot more of an involved asset tracking system. Has a lot of information. It's app based. You'll have, as a customer, you would have access to see your assets in real time. You can pull them up. Let's say you're managing 3-4 facilities and you want to know how all your equipment's doing, or you're trying to plan for CapEx and you need to know how many levelers you need to replace. You can go right into the app. You can pull it up. You can sort it by which ones are in the red, meaning due for replacement, and you can run that and plan for CapEx. And also see how much that piece of equipment may cost you, per year, for 6 months. It keeps all that record. But you gotta get the barcodes on it, and you gotta get on the program to start, capturing the data. Because as Dennis mentioned earlier, like, data-driven decisions are becoming more and more prevalent in the workplace, and the more information you have, the better off you're going to be in the long run. Any questions on the Safe Checks, Dennis?
No, I think that's good.
All right. Scheduling of these things, it really depends on the volume in your facility. If you got 5-10 trucks coming in a day, and 6 to 8 times a day you're unloading trucks, that's more of a hectic schedule that you probably need quarterly. There's a lot that can happen, at a dock, at a door, from day to day. You got over the road truck drivers coming in, backing up. Maybe they don't back up square to the opening and they knock the bumper off the wall. You could have a good rating on a piece of equipment one day, and 3 days later it could be yellow or red, due to something that happened that you may not be aware of. So it's good to get it done quarterly. If I'd say on the bare minimum, you want to do it once a year and just check out the quality of the equipment and how it's holding up and how it's being utilized. There's a lot that can happen, and just to not think about it, it's usually, it creates an emergency call situation. Hey, my door's stuck. Well, it's been on its way for a while, and if you would have had one of these safety checks, we'd have caught it before it became a unit down or an emergency call or a Sunday call, which would cost you twice as much. I mean, it's good to just help you, see what you have and know what kind of shape it's in, so you can plan to be successful in the future.
Yeah, we talked about the security side and really, help alleviate if brush seals bit through for pests, or, you got weather damage and you're trying to control energy cost, or, just thieves stealing stuff. But this slide, JP here, why do facility owners fail to create safe environments? What's your thoughts around this one?
Well, safety for me is a culture, and it starts with the top down. And there is a mentality out there that, well, it's never happened here, or, there's no reason for us to have fall protection, like nobody's going to fall out, and that's the mentality until it happens to you. It's kind of like wearing a seatbelt. Well, I never get in a wreck, so I don't wear my seatbelt. But all it takes is one wreck, and it's the same thing that goes with a safe environment for your employees. I mean, you're not just managing yourself. You've got a lot of employees, maybe new employees that have never operated this kind of equipment or driven a forklift before. It's something culturally that I think is needs to be driven, from the management down, because safety is something that it's important. You can't just assume you're safe. You gotta make sure, and what better way to do that than bring in the experts to do an assessment and look, see if you're within the guidelines of what we consider safe, or what the industry considers safe. Worst thing you want to do is ever put an employee in danger.
JP, just to add one point there, in a lot of situations, especially if you have interlocked equipment, with your vehicle restraint and dock leveler, in the event that you have a trouble, you have the option to send a supervisor out to the facility or out to the warehouse and override the dock position so that it can be used. In a lot of cases, that override fails to be put back in the interlocking sequence that it was designed to be in. And so over time, if you have 50 positions inside of your facility and over several years, you've overridden several of those and haven't put them back in the correct interlock place, you could have a situation where what you believe as a facility owner is a safe interlocked dock position, when in fact they've been overridden by supervisors out on the warehouse over a period of time, and they're not interlocked. And so you create an environment where where you thought you had a safe dock position, but it's been overridden due to whatever reason. So it's important to not only ensure that the dock equipment, the vehicle restraints, the seals, the doors are all functioning correctly, but also inspecting the interlocking of the equipment to ensure that that is how it was designed and intended to be used as well.
Yeah, and I think moving towards the future, I think a lot of the standard is manually operated dock levelers or doors. I think as we start to move, to a more safe atmosphere in all our warehouses across the United States, that the more we get automated, for push button. Typically the contractor spec is for a manual door and a manual dock leveler with a pull chain, and those things have hold downs and hold downs break and levelers pop up and doors become heavy, and that's where a lot of these injuries happen. So I think the more we can do to get airbag levelers or hydraulic levelers, something that's more of a push button operation than actually like having to muscle this thing up or pull a chain and watch it pop, the more safe the atmosphere is going to be.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. Just on this slide real quick is, just construction. If you guys have done a new construction building and you don't have specific bumpers that they put the standard pop bumpers on, the little 12 by 12s, and you really want a vertical steel face, or there's no restraints and there's no motors on doors, all that stuff can be retrofitted. And it's not a big expense at the end of the day when you consider the other, right? Being sued or an accident or just insurance, OSHA fines, all that stuff add up. So really you can convert facilities. Another thing, people move in and look, at the end of the day, it's probably not the right equipment for your facility, but you moved into it. So why not have somebody come out and at least evaluate it? And this is how you get started with your own safety checklists. Like JP mentioned earlier, there's no obligation. We'll come out and do a free inspection. If you want the data-driven one with the asset tagging, barcoding, and metrics and all that kind of stuff with the customized website and electronic evidence, there's a fee for that, but obviously that's based off of size and the accuracy of the location. So that's something we can look at as well. But at the end of the day, we didn't want to keep this too long, but we wanted to kind of make sure we left time. But these are the minor care suite of solutions: the Safe Check, which is the safety assessments, and then Safe Act, which are proactive maintenance programs. We do national safety and national maintenance programs for companies all over the place. Wanted to make sure that we had that in there. And then really just at the end here, this is some, we'll make sure you get some of this information in a plug in an email to you guys, but really questions and concerns, just comments, anything, let us know. We're here. I think we have about 15 minutes. So Danielle, I don't know if there's any questions, but you could fire away, and me, JP, and Johnny will do our best to answer them. Danielle, you there?
Yes, hi. Okay, looks like we have two questions. Hi. All right, so the first question we have is, would visual alerting LED systems be beneficial to avoid door-related incidents?
Can you repeat that question?
Sure. Would visual alerting LED systems be beneficial to avoid door-related incidents, especially with maybe a pre-announced feature if there is an internal timer?
Definitely could lend to safety. I've seen doors with time clocks on them that count down as to when it's going to close. So you'll see 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's going to alert somebody that's going to close. I've also seen on the high-speed doors with the LED lights and the guides that, you know, when doors up, they're green, and when it's coming down, it's red, meaning it's just a good visual, you know, cue to stop and realize that there's a door coming up and down. A lot of these doors are fitted with safety edges now that in the case they do come down and strike something, they'll shoot themselves back up. But visually, you know, it would be helpful. You know,
Yeah,
the more we do to make safety better.
The answer is definitely yes, no doubt about it. Because your visual, they're flashing lights. People are more aware when you see flashing lights. They'll be a little bit more cautious. As long as whatever you install and you build out a training program on what it means. Like, so when the lights are blinking, are they blinking fast? Are they not blinking? Are they green? Are they red? As long as the employees understand what that means, they could be very effective. If they're installed and there's no training and they don't go through each one of your shifts and tell everybody what they're used for, you know, you kind of roll the dice a little bit on that. But that's a good question. I think they were definitely effective.
One other point too. I mean, a lot of the, you know, there's options on activation and sensors as well. So a lot of times those two get used interchangeably. But with high-speed doors, you have, you know, two features. You have the activation that opens the door that most likely times to close. And then a lot of the safety features are actually inside of the guides, and so it's not really picking up on you know, an obstruction being inside the opening unless it's directly underneath the door. So if your facility is set up that way, you have the opportunity to provide a presence sensor in addition to the activation that can pick up on traffic, whether it be people coming, forklifts coming, pedestrians coming, that actually pick them up in advance of them getting to the door as well. So in addition to the LED safety, there's also some things that you can do with the activation to prevent injuries as well.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you. That question was actually from Jocelyn. And we have a comment from Tony. Great presentation. So that's awesome. Appreciate that. And then also Tony mentioned Brink Alert LED safety systems are a great add-on.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree at all. I think that's a great look for sure. Everyone should be reviewing what makes sense at their facilities. You know, might not be perfect for everybody, but it's definitely effective.
That is all the questions from the attendees. I have a few more.
Okay.
Okay, here's another one. One just came in. If we use wheel chocks in facilities, aren't we safe just by using them alone? Is it sufficient enough?
The wheel chocks are the minimum standard of safety, and again, it's the manual aspect of it for me that, you know, it gets overlooked. There's busy days, you're unloading a lot of trucks. You know, who's responsible for walking outside of the building to put the wheel chock under the wheel? It's just a lot of room for error and a lot of room for cutting corners. You know, it's been my experience over the years that, you know, if you can speed up by not chalking the wheels, you know, in a warehouse, that some people are going to take that shortcut. And you know, to fully automate it with the red and green light systems is just a better long-term solution, safer.
Let me add to that. The other part that I would say too with the wheel chocks is, like, if the intent is to provide the, you know, the minimum that doesn't get you in trouble, then that's essentially the culture that you're going to create inside of the organization as well. You know, I'm only required to put safety chocks on there. They're the cheapest, they're the lowest cost option. So I'm going to put the absolute bare minimum on there. I think it would be, you know, very wise to show the employees that, hey, we're going to do more than invest in the bare minimum. We're going to try to create an environment that has the highest safety precautions put in place in order to protect you. So to me, wheel chocks it's not necessarily indicative of the culture, but it could be perceived that way if you get into a situation where you were presented an option for vehicle restraints and opted to not do so for a cost perspective. So that would be my point there.
Yeah, and I want to add to that too, and not to your point, but to something different. The labor studies that have been done on people actually using wheel chocks, the amount of time it takes for somebody to go outside the building. Remember, are you in a snow environment, a rain environment, a cold environment, whatever, a super hot environment? Somebody's got to go outside, get underneath the truck and slide those things under the wheels, right? Unless you make the truck drivers responsible, and who knows what happens there, right? They're not employees. So the labor studies that have been done, it costs a lot of money. You could have bought a restraint, 2 or 3 times over the amount of time and labor it costs for them to chock those wheels. Plus they go missing all the time. You have to replace them all the time. And, look, at the end of the day, it's really just, a check in the box. I got a wheel chock. That's all it really is. And trucks can drive over them. I mean, it's a little bump. That's all it is.
Yeah, and in addition to that, right, the logic would be you're relying on potentially a third party, trucker to control the destiny of the safety of the employees that are actually on your team. So there's a risk associated with that as well.
Any other questions, Danielle?
Yes, we have one more that came in. How frequently should companies be training their employees on loading dock equipment? And that also includes new employees as well.
I'll take that. So it's important to understand the frequency of, onboarding or orienting new employees that come inside of your facility. In a lot of cases, people are trained on the equipment that they're actually going to be using, such as a forklift. They get trained on the forklift. Someone shows them how to operate the dock leveler. Someone shows them how to operate the door. But they don't understand and go through what all the safety precautions are and what to look for other than what they're supposed to do, right? There's an awareness around creating loading dock and warehouse safety that is above and beyond just training on how to use specific types of equipment. And I know here at Minor, in conjunction with a lot of the surveys that we perform, we'll send people out to do demonstrations and training on existing equipment for employees, whether you do a once a month onboarding or you do a safety stand down every quarter. Inviting a professional that understands loading dock equipment and overhead doors to that training and to that orientation, I think is an extremely good investment into your facility and into your people, because you'll train them on how to use it, but you'll also train them on what to look for if things are not right, and just gives you an additional set of eyes and additional layer of training and awareness around how to be safe at the loading dock. So I would say legislating a time to perform that training is probably not most appropriate, but I do think it should be done with some level of frequency to not only ensure that people are trained up on how to use it, but also to make sure that the equipment that they are using is safe as well.
Comments? Anything else, Danielle, or are we good to go?
We are good to go. Thank you, everyone, for those questions and comments.
Yeah, no, thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Danielle, how are we going to follow up? Are people going to get access to any of this, or?
Yes, so after this webinar, be sure to check your inbox. We have you could book a no obligation site safety survey with the link provided in the email. And that's going to be right after 2 o'clock, expected in your inbox, and you could book it and we will get back to you ASAP.
We're also on LinkedIn too. If you guys want to shoot us any LinkedIn stuff, we'll answer any questions for you, or just shoot us an email. So I appreciate everybody's time today. Thank you, and have a great and safe day. Here.
To everyone.